Welcome in, Chiefs Kingdom, to Chiefs Latest, your one-stop spot for everything Kansas City Chiefs in 15 minutes or less. It is your host, Calvin Silvers. Happy Tuesday. We are getting closer and closer to that first preseason game for the Chiefs. I know we're all itching to see what kind of talent we have, especially the rookies, and see if this is Brett Veach's best rookie class yet. That is to be determined, but the big news on Monday, because the Chiefs were off from training camp, but the big news that caught my attention yesterday was what Sean Payton and the Broncos had to say about their team. Now, we're going to dive into all this, but before we do, you know the drill. That's right, you do. And if you haven't already, I'm kind of sad, but here's your chance. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications because we have daily, that's right, you heard me correctly, daily videos Monday through Friday here at Chiefs Latest. You're not going to want to miss any of the action, so go ahead. That's right, hit that subscribe button, turn on those notifications ads. It not only helps me in the channel, but it's going to help you stay up to date with everything Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I mentioned that the first preseason game is looming for the Chiefs just right around the corner. Now, adding a big free agent splash is probably unlikely at this point. Of course, the Chiefs want to see who they have, see what their talent looks like before they have to start cutting down, and they don't want to complicate it anymore. But as we know, as the preseason goes on, that injuries are likely going to arise. And you might just notice that there are some depth issues in certain positions. So if that happens to be the case, well, that might force Brett Veach to add another free agent. And one of those names that have just popped up is Rasul Douglas. That's right, his name has come up on the radar. 29 years old, soon to be 30, a good veteran to add. He was a steal for the Bills back in 2023 for a trade. He was locking down with a 38.6 passer rating. That's when he was targeted, and he had 4 picks in just 9 games. And his 19 career interceptions, including 3 straight years of 4-plus interceptions from 2021 to 2023, scream that not only is he a playmaker, but he might still have some of that juice left in him. But 2024 was a rough year. 43 catches allowed on 59 targets for 518 yards and 4 touchdowns. The really bad thing, there's a 122 passer rating against him. So that, dip kept him unsigned so far, and his price tag should be low and appealing for if the Chiefs wanted to try and bring him in. 6'2", 209-pound frame, and his zone coverage instincts, that could pair pretty nicely with McDuffie and Watson, adding some perimeter grit. He'd also stabilize a secondary hit by, injuries to Rush, Scott, Fulton. Of course, they released Rush and Scott, but what I'm saying is they're facing injuries already. So I'm sold. I could be sold, I should say, on this, experiment. But his 2024 regression, I think that does raise some flags. So can he be a rebound, or is he just going to be a risky bet? Again, back in 2023, 4 interceptions, 38.6 passer rating when targeted, 29 tackles, 8 passes defended in 9 games. And again, he's a good zone fit. His length, his knack for reading QBs and zone schemes, that's going to work in Spag's defense. It's going to disrupt these AFC West passing attacks, or just AFC passing attacks in general, while he could also mentor some young corners. Roland Wallace, he's been a name that's been popping up a lot recently in camp and could be a good addition for the Chiefs later on, and someone like Joshua Williams if they decide to keep him on the roster. So again, Douglas could be a low-cost, high-impact, price cornerback number 3 for that secondary, but I think his 2024 struggles do make him a gamble unless he could recapture his 2023 ball hawking form. But then again, you might be able to get him at a lower price because of that recession last year. But there is one free agent that I think the Chiefs missed their opportunity with, and I don't know if they're going to go back and take the opportunity. That's right. The first unofficial depth chart for the Chiefs has Kingsley Suamataia starting at left tackle, and Jalen Moore has been backing him up, and he's been splitting right tackle reps with Jawan Taylor. But I'm shocked that they passed on Brandon Scherf. That's right. Scherf is a 5-time Pro Bowler, pass blocking rock, projected $7 to $9 million 1-year deal. That would fit Casey's cap. His 2024 season, 0 sacks allowed on 625 snaps. That would have given Mahomes a clean pocket. And Suamataia he's young. He only had 195 snaps in 2024. He allowed 3 sacks, had a 39.4 PFF grade. That just screams inexperience. And I don't know if he's ready to take, I don't know if his second year leap is going to be much better. But Scherf, he could have mentored him while he was locking down the interior. Again, Moore's versatility is nice, but we don't know if he's going to survive a whole season. Taylor's lingering knee issue from 2024, this makes that O-line a gamble, especially at the guard position. So Scherf's veteran presence, I think that would have stabilized the Chiefs. I think that would have stabilized this unit and would have allowed Mahomes to get back to his MVP caliber status. So I get sticking with the youth or rocking with what you have and trying to mesh that, but passing on, Scherf just proves I don't know. I think that was a proven protection, and you could have got him on a budget-friendly deal. I feel like it's a missed chance to fortify this line, which has been your biggest issues, especially in the Super Bowls. Again, 2023, he allowed 2 sacks, but had a 2.5% pressure rate. That was 4th lowest in the NFL. And then last year, 0 sacks allowed, 74.9 PFF pass block grade. That was 19th out of 136 guards. And he has that mentorship value, technical savvy, gap discipline. I think that would help, get Suamatia up to speed. I think that would help anchor against AFC West bull rushers. I think it would just set up some long-term growth while keeping Mahomes upright now, and that's the important thing. So, again, his pass blocking, ability, his mentorship, I think that would have been a great potential and a perfect fit for KC's O-line, and skipping on him for Suamatia's unproven upside, I still feel like that's a pretty risky bet. But what about Rashee Rice? Everyone, we see him just kicking butt right now in training camp. He's looking good. Him and Mahomes have that connection. But a recent rumor about what is going to happen with the Vikings could point to some direction with Rice. That's right. The Vikings are prepping for a 3-game suspension for Jordan Addison. And it's raising some eyebrows because it might be a clue to how much Rashee Rice could face, how many weeks of suspension he could face. So Addison had a 2024 DUI. It was downgraded with a plea after he was found asleep behind the wheel. Again, it has Minnesota bracing for a 20% season hit that he's going to miss. The NFL's baseline for alcohol-related offenses is 3 games, but Rice's case is a little trickier because, yes, Rice had that 119-mile-per-hour Lamborghini crash, 8 felony counts, and injured victims. It's heavy, but there was no alcohol involved, so that's something that is more in his favor in this case. So predictions for Rice's suspension, of course, kind of a big gap, but it ranged from 3 to 8 games, and that's just reflecting the NFL's murky disciplinary track. Of course, the Chiefs' wide receiver depth already being tested in camp. It can't afford a long-time Rice absence. Rashee Rice last season, 24 receptions, 288 yards, and 2 touchdowns before he got injured, and again, pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts, and I would think anywhere from a 3 to 6 game suspension. That's just what I think, but it could be anywhere from 3 to 8. Again, hopefully it's just a 2 to 4 game suspension. You don't want to put as much pressure on Worthy, even someone like Thornton or Smith-Schuster, but a longer ban could force Veach to chase veterans, like I've been saying, someone like Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen. So again, Addison's likely 3-game ban. That's what they're predicting right now. That's the rumor. It hints at Rice facing likely 3 to 6 games. And with KC's wide receiver depth shaky right now, a shorter disciplinary suspension is critical, I think, to keeping Mahomes firing and making sure that him and Rice's, connection doesn't falter at any point. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, the Broncos kind of talking crazy, or more just their coach, Sean Payton is, but he's claiming that his Broncos are Super Bowl ready right now. He feels that they can make it. He said he's had, 6 teams that he felt like could win a Super Bowl. This is his 7th. I feel like that's a stretch. That's more motivational talk than it is reality. And of course, I would have loved if he would have said this to his guys in the locker room, but to say this publicly, it's kind of crazy. Bo Nix's 2024 was solid. It was a pretty good year, but a sophomore slump like Mac Jones, who had similar stats to Bo Nix, we'll get to that in a second, but he had a dip his sophomore year. So a dip for Bo Nix isn't out of the question for the young quarterback. And these two, like I said, did have similar rookie stats. And if they did get to a Super Bowl, Nix would join, Marino, Warner, Roethlisberger, and Brady as some of the second-year Super Bowl starters. That's a tall order to face against. Denver hasn't won a playoff game since the 2015-16 season, and their 2024 losses to every starting AFC playoff team in the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Bengals show that they're not ready for the big stage. Now you're going to say, Calvin, they did beat the Chiefs last year. Yeah, the Chiefs' backups, when they faced the starters for the Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Bengals, or any team that made the playoffs in the AFC, because the Bengals didn't, but any other team, they lost to. They weren't ready for the big stage like that. Their wins came against quarterbacks like Rodgers, who's mightily struggling and is 42 years old, Minshew, Radler, Young, Cousins, Winston, Anthony Richardson. Are any of the wins, are any of those blowing your guys' mind right now? Of course, he beat Baker Mayfield, but in my eyes, Baker Mayfield's kind of an overrated quarterback anyways. So most, if not all, are hardly elite company. Their lone Chief win, again, was against the backups. So I bet on the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bengals, or even the Bills over Denver in the AFC any day. Knicks, 3,775 yards, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions with a 66% completion percentage and a 93 rating. As I mentioned, let's go to Mac Jones's rookie year, 3,801 yards. Again, Bo Nix had 3,775. More yards there for Mac Jones, 22 touchdowns for Jones compared to Bo Nix's 29. Nix had 12 interceptions, where Mac Jones had 13, but Jones had a 68% completion percentage and a 92.5 rating. So, again, very similar there. Denver's defense, led by, Surtain, is stout, but it wasn't really tested. The defense was not, again, I can go through those quarterbacks' names, and none of them are really going to blow you away. The offense, it still has a lot to be desired. They were middle of the pack in every major offensive category, whether it was average yards a game, average passing yards a game, rushing yards a game, touchdowns a game. They were all middle of the pack. They didn't really stand out in any regard there. And their defense, once again, was winning and doing well against non-favorable quarterbacks. So Peyton's Super Bowl talk is bold. It's premature. Denver's unproven against the AFC elite still, and Knicks' sophomore leap isn't guaranteed. Again, I would choose the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, or even the Bengals before I thought of the Broncos making the Super Bowl or even winning the Super Bowl. So a little premature there from our lovely friends, I say loosely there in Denver. Well, that is it for Tuesday's episode here at Cheifs Latest. If you haven't already, I'd be disappointed, but if you haven't already, I'm gonna let it slide. But now you have to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. Please, it helps me and it helps the channel, and we really appreciate it. I also appreciate all the comments you guys have been leaving and just your guys' thoughts. It's always fun to read those. Let me know what you think here about adding another defensive free agent. Or do you think that we missed our chance with Scherf, or can we go and still get him? Would you guys like to see him on this roster? And also, do you think Rice is going to face more than a 6-game suspension? Let me all know. And what do you think about the Broncos' big talk? You think it's reasonable that they think that they can make the Super Bowl? I just don't see it. Once again, I am your host, Calvin Silvers, here at Cheifs Latest. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, have a good one.